After the countdown today, the Falcon 935E got automatically aborted the second time this week. If you have been following all the previous launching, you will understand that this is not unusual. SpaceX couldn't re-attempt another launching today because of the time left.
Now, not visible in the typical view, but you can see here at the end of the long ramp is the hangar at the edge of Complex 39A. This hangar houses both Falcon 9s and Falcon Heavy stages. Final integration of the rocket with the spacecraft is also performed in the hangar. From there, we roll the assembled rocket north up the ramp to the crown of the launch pad. You can see the pad is slightly elevated above the surrounding landscape. This allows us to have the large flame bucket underneath to channel the thrust away from the rocket. Now, on the launch pad, we've got two facilities, a fixed service structure with the large lightning rod that's on top. You can see it right behind the Falcon 9. And just to the left is the rotating service structure. We're continuing to demolish that this year. It's no longer needed by SpaceX after the Space Shuttle program. On the pad itself, you can see Falcon 9, the two-stage rocket in white, topped off by the payload fairing 43-foot long that surrounds the Intelsat 35E spacecraft. Now in the close-ups, you can see there are no recovery systems on the first stage. Their landing legs and grid fins were not installed at the launch site. So our coverage today will focus solely on the second stage as it heads into orbit. And we do plan to bring you mission coverage through spacecraft separation today. Now we're currently at T-minus 6 minutes 47 seconds, continuing to count down on the Falcon 9. The good news is the SpaceX team working no issues. We have finished loading RP-1 fuel onto both stages. We're continuing to load liquid oxygen onto both the first and second stage, as is typical. Now, a word on yesterday's abort. There is a normal guidance check in the countdown that's done at T-minus 10 seconds. And yesterday, we issued an automatic abort based upon some guidance data that looked to be out of family. We did further analysis shortly after launch, and a review of the vehicle showed that the guidance system and the flight vehicle were in good shape. We actually had a problem with the ground limits that we have since modified, so we should not see that same abort today. So everything on the Falcon 9 is looking good for an on-time launch in just a few minutes from now. The Intelsat 35E spacecraft is on internal power, working no issues. They're ready for launch. The range, air, and sea spaces are clear, and the weather, well, obviously we had to use up our hour window, but it looks like the weather has moved far enough away that we should get a launch attempt coming up in just over 5.5 minutes. Now for some information on the mission and capabilities of the epic Intelsat 35E spacecraft and system, we have a short video for you from our customer, Intelsat. T-minus 3 minutes, 43 seconds. Everything continues to count down towards an on-time launch at 35 minutes after the hour. We just heard in the background that the guidance nav and control team has verified that the problem that we saw yesterday that has the abort is not present today. Guidance system is looking good. We have begun retract of the strong back away from the second stage, pressurizing the vehicle so that we could open the clamp arms. The strong back will move about 1.5 degrees away from the vehicle, then move the rest of the way to the 77-degree launch position after we get liftoff and release of the Falcon 9. We're currently closing out propellant load on the first and second stage, and at this stage, at T-minus 3 minutes, everything's continuing to look good. The next major activity after shutting down LOX loading onto the vehicle, you'll hear at T-minus 1 minute, the flight computer is going to start up, and that'll lead up to release of the Falcon 9 at T-minus 0 as we fly into space carrying the Intelsat 35E spacecraft. So we're going to listen with you as we go through the last minutes of the countdown sequence.
Stage 2 return manifold secured.
Strong back lower has ended. Strong back is at 88.5 degrees.
Stage 2 lock secured. Falcon 9 is on internal power. MOD fuel bleed complete. Vehicles in self-align.
Ground gas closeout has started.
Stage 1, stage 2, cryo secured.
FTS announced AFTS is ready for launch.
AFTS is ready for launch.
Gas closeout is complete.
BC verify F9's in startup.
Falcon 9 is in startup. Stage 1, stage 2, press for flight.
LD verify go for launch.
Go for launch.
T-minus 30. T-minus 20.
Falcon 9 is configured for flight.
T-minus 10. Fed launch abort sequence.
John Innsbrucker again at SpaceX webcast desk here in Hawthorne, California. Again, we've had an abort at T-minus 10 seconds. The countdown has been stopped. We're waiting now as the team goes through the standard abort sequence. We don't know what the cause was. We're going to listen and see what we can bring back to you. Now, this was obviously, as we heard early in the countdown, as I reported, the problem that we saw yesterday was looking good. So we think the guidance nav and control problem from the day before has been fixed. But the team right now is going through their standard abort sequence that we typically use during static fires. That's not new for us. So we're going to listen for a moment and then try to come back with some more information. But as a reminder, we are at the end of the window today, so there will not be an opportunity to recycle and try to launch again later today. So let's go back to the countdown net for a few minutes and listen in.
CLC on countdown, we're proceeding to offloads.
Welcome back, John Isbrecher again. We're still waiting for the launch director to give an update. Currently, the team is going through the safing procedure and stepping into the propellant offload steps, and we are continuing to protect a launch opportunity on tomorrow, the 4th of July. But we're waiting for just another minute or two to see if we can bring you any information about the hold itself before we end the webcast. So hang in there for another couple of minutes. We'll be back then with a final summary. Good afternoon, good evening again from the Hawthorne headquarters webcast desk for the Falcon 9 launch of Intelsat 35E. At this time, we still do not have definitive information on what caused the scrub at T-minus 10 seconds. As I mentioned earlier in the webcast, at T-minus 10 seconds, that's one of the points where we routinely check a lot of data on the vehicle to make sure that everything is good to go as close to launch as we can measure it. Now, as is typical when you have something that causes a hold in the countdown, or in this case, a scrub for the day, the first pieces of data may actually not be, what you might want to call out as the cause of the hold. So that's where the SpaceX engineering team is going through, threading that information together. We have all the telemetry coming off of the rocket, so we've got plenty of information, but they're taking their time right now to understand what system they're really looking at that would be the cause of the hold. So you'll have to follow us on our social media sites as we get more information. Now, as a reminder, scrubbing at T-minus 10 seconds, not unusual. When we test fire the rockets in Texas or even at the launch site, we run an abort sequence, as it's called, so that we can safe the vehicle. We've already gone through that, and we have moved on into offloading propellant in order to protect another launch opportunity, possibly tomorrow, if the investigation allows it to proceed. At the same time, the spacecraft team, they're going back to external power. They're checking their systems, but they report no issues right now, so they would also be good to go for the moment. So that's going to wrap it up. We had an extended countdown today. We had to wait for the weather, and we got to T-minus 10 seconds before we had a hold. Once again, called by the automated abort criteria. We were not able to recycle because we were out of the window. So with that, our earliest launch opportunity, again, may be tomorrow, the 4th of July here in the United States, a great holiday, and we'll see whether or not we have a rocket that will be able to fly on that day. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody, thank our customer, Intelsat, the range for being up today, and hopefully tomorrow to support us, the FAA on licensing, and you, the viewers, for watching along with us. That's going to end our webcast for today. Hopefully we'll be back on with you tomorrow. For now, have a good evening, and goodbye.